Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to be here with Chairman Brendan Carr. He was elevated to chairman of the FCC on that blessed inaugural day in 2025 by our President Donald J. Trump, after having served 8 years or so as as commissioner of the FCC. I think you started as a staffer, right?
I did. I started all the way back in 2012. I started the FCC. I had hair back then. That's how long I've been in the agency.
Although it was not President Trump who caused you to lose your hair. It was probably during the Biden administration, right?
That's right.
So before we get into the substance of our conversation, just explain what the FCC does and what its mandate is under Congress's charge.
Sure. The FCC is an administrative agency based in Washington, D.C., and we regulate the telecom sector and also the media sector. There's a lot of work that we're doing right now, including on affordability. Since President Trump has took office over the last year, cell phone prices are down over 6%. Prices are down over 8% since Biden-era highs. Internet speeds are up. Competition's increasing. Digital divide is narrowing. So we're delivering a lot of results for the American people.
So before I ask you to go into that a little bit more, I want to take the opportunity to embarrass the chairman for just a moment. On March 20th, the president had, I would say, an impressive number of people in the room. And he said of you, and you can explain, there were generals and others in the room, and he described Chairman Carr as probably the most powerful man in the room. And he said that what you are doing to restore respect to the fake media, hat tip to the fake media somewhere in here, back there, for the first time in 25 years, you are tackling and taking on the fake media in ways that have not been done, quite frankly. So walk everybody through that, because each and every day we rely on the media. Although now we've gotten smarter, we find alternative ways to get our information, but to a large degree, the media has formed and informed our thought process. So what have you done that caused the president to give you such a shout out?
Look, President Trump, when he ran for office, he ran directly at the fake news media. So many other politicians and Americans simply gave way to the legacy national media. They let the legacy media set the narrative. And President Trump smashed the facade. He said, you don't get to decide what we say, what we think, how we're going to vote inside the voting booth. President Trump took on the fake news media, and President Trump is winning. Look at the results so far. PBS defunded, NPR defunded, Joy Reid gone from MSNBC, Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd gone, Jim Acosta gone, John Dickerson gone, Colbert is leaving. CBS is under new ownership, and soon enough, CNN is going to have new ownership as well. So we're not.
So this is significant.
We're not at the point yet, raising the mission accomplished flag, but President Trump is taking on the fake news media, and President Trump is winning.
And this is significant because everybody in this room has had their tax-paying dollars for years go to PBS, go to NPR, and it's all been biased,
It's even more than that. The legacy national media, the broadcasters, they have for generations had free access to a public resource, a valuable public resource, which is the airwaves. And broadcasters are fundamentally different than every other distributor of news and information and program. Different than cable, different than podcast, different than streaming. If you're a broadcaster, you have a license from the government, and you're required by law to operate in the public interest. And the FCC has very specific rules on this. No broadcast hoax, no news distortions. You need to look out for the needs of your individual local community.
So when you say broadcast, just to be clear, you're talking about ABC, NBC, CBS, where a huge number of people get their news.
Yeah. The way to think about media is you can break it into two buckets. On the one hand, you've got we call the national programs, that's Disney, Comcast, Paramount, and others. and they create all of the programs they're used to seeing, but those programs are distributed by individual licensed TV stations. What's happened over the years is those national programmers, Comcast and Disney in particular, have amassed an enormous amount of power and control, and they're effectively pushing this New York and Hollywood foie gras down through all these local stations. So what we're doing at the FCC is we're working to empower those local broadcasts to actually push back on Comcast and Disney. You saw that in the instance with Jimmy Kimmel, for instance. You had local TV stations for the first time push back and say, we don't want to run that program in our community right now. And if you step back, the legacy media is in absolute decline right now. Trust in legacy media is something at 9%. More Americans have trust in gas station sushi than they do in the fake news media. And there's reasons for that. The legacy media is just wildly out of touch with the American people. Recently on Super Bowl Sunday, Washington Post had a sports writer, put a piece out that said the most important person to the Super Bowl is Colin Kaepernick. Someone who had not stepped on a football field in 10 or 20 years. You had ABC reporters saying that the gold medal winning U.S. Olympic hockey team missed the moment by spending time with the President of the United States after winning the gold medal. You had Time Magazine go out and put a CCP athlete on the cover of Time Magazine before the Olympics rather than an actual U.S. athlete. And the other issue with the legacy media is they've been called out for running hoax after hoax after hoax. Covington Catholic, mostly peaceful protests, Biden's of sound mind, Hunter Biden laptop, the list goes on. And now people actually have access to news information that's telling them the truth. And again, for years, the FCC, where I work, walked away from enforcing the public interest standard. And I don't think we're better off as a country for doing that. So if you're a broadcaster, you've got a license, you have an obligation to operate in the public interest. And if you're not doing that, then you very well could lose your license. It's not a property right.
Right. I mean, look what happened with the election. When it was candidate Trump for the second time, 94% of the media coverage was negative. Yet this man won an overwhelming the win was, he won every swing state. So basically, if you think about it, Kamala Harris, thank God we're not calling her President Harris, had 94% positive coverage. And the reality, thank God that there are smart people like those in this room who know and have enough of you have such a smart thought process to ignore the legacy media, to see beyond it.
Yeah, I mean, the core ingredient of being a broadcaster, again, is you're supposed to identify the needs of your local community. And if your coverage is 97% negative towards a particular politician, they end up winning in a landslide election, that's pretty good evidence that you're not really identifying, responding, and serving the needs of your local community. And look, if you're a broadcaster and you don't like the fact that the FCC is going to enforce the public interest obligation, again, that's fine. You can turn your license in. The FCC has our address out there publicly, 45 L Street. You can send it there. You can become a podcaster, a streamer, a cable channel. But if you want to use America's airways for free, you're going to be held accountable now to the public interest standard.
Right. And one would think that they would change their ways, at least just a bit, right?
Well,
to catch up with the times, right?
Yeah.
So explain what the equal time rule is, or the equal opportunity rule, and how that applies to the Stephen Colbert example, and of course the women on The View, because in this room, conservatives do know how to define what a woman is, so we're able to say the women on The View, unlike the other side. So explain how that all connects.
Well, years ago, Congress decided that they did not want media gatekeepers to decide the outcome of elections. They wanted individual people and voters to do it. So there's a rule on the books called the equal time provision, which means if you're a broadcaster and you're going to have a legally qualified politician for office on, you have to offer comparable time to all other legally qualified candidates. And again, for years, the FCC walked away from enforcing this. Now, there's an exception for programs that are called bona fide news programs in the statute. At the time, Congress had in mind things like Meet the Press or real, legitimate, hard-hitting news interview programs. Now, you have Disney out there claiming that The View, of all programs, The View and Whoopi Goldberg is a bona fide news program and therefore exempt from the equal time rule. I hear you. And so the FCC has launched an enforcement investigation into The View for failing to comply with the equal time provisions. And here's the thing. A lot of people, when they get gavels in Washington, particularly on the conservative side, they take the gavel and they go to the farthest flung corners of the country and they take the gavel and they bury it in the sand. They say, we better not use the power when we're in charge because Democrats are going to weaponize it when they're in charge. But I got news for you. Democrats are going to weaponize it when they have it. They have weaponized it. And rather than weaponizing ourselves, let's just apply the law the way Congress is written in a fair and even-handed manner. And that's what we're doing. Because if you look even at the FCC, during the Biden years, there was massive weaponization. So for instance, there was a local Fox TV station in Philadelphia who had a renewal coming due. And the FCC in the Biden years took the unprecedented step of seeking comment on not renewing, effectively revoking, that Fox broadcast license because people disagreed with programming on Fox News cable. That had never happened before. You had Democrats in Congress writing cable companies, pressuring them to drop OAN, Newsmax, and Fox News because they disagreed with the decisions being made in those newsrooms. You had Senator Markey and Senator Blumenthal, Democrats in the Senate, writing the FCC letter to get us to investigate news distortion complaints against Sinclair, an owner of broadcast TV stations, because the Democrats thought that Sinclair was too conservative for their liking. And those actions delivered. The FCC in the Biden years had hundreds of routine licenses come due for Sinclair that they simply did not renew. They just let them sit there. That had never happened before. You had a Spanish language radio station in Florida getting bought by conservative buyers, and the DNC came out and said the FCC has to block this sale. The outcome of the 2022 midterm election depended on it, and that sale didn't go through. So the track record is very clear. When the Democrats were in charge of the FCC, they did not apply the law in an even-handed way. They weaponized it. And what I think we should do is not weaponize it, but also not just sit on our hands. We should take the authorities we have, apply it in a fair and even-handed way, and we're doing it. There's a lot of people that don't like that. There's a lot of people in Hollywood that don't like what the FCC are doing. They've enjoyed their ability to have free monopoly access to the airwaves to run whatever programming they want, regardless of the public interest. But we've been very clear that those days are over.
Right. It's always a good test. If Hollywood doesn't approve it, if the left doesn't approve it and you're following the law, you know you're doing something right? Like that's the good litmus test right there. Let's turn for a minute to one of my favorite subjects, calling centers. So I don't know if any of you have had this experience. Venture to say that pretty much everybody has. You have a question, you call whatever 800 number it is, and you get a call-in center, somebody in a foreign country. I love to travel, I love people in foreign countries, but I'm calling an American company. I'd like to get answers. I'd like to have it where I can understand the person. What is the FCC doing to address this issue?
This has been a big frustration for people. You call up a business, end up connecting with a call center located half the world away. There's language barriers, communications barriers, frankly, security barriers. These workers at foreign call centers can get flipped by bad actors to steal your information, or they take their training at these legitimate call centers and go work for illegal robocall centers abroad. And so the FCC voted just this week to require certain regulated entities by the agency to move and onshore their call centers here, and to require any call centers that remain to require the call takers to be proficient in standard American English. I think that there should be American call centers for American callers.
That's great. That's really, look, I guess everybody's experienced that, right? So another thing that I think that is important to emphasize that is happening under your leadership is you're trying to get, at a more affordable price, greater access to internet across America. Talk about that briefly. We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, we're running a Build America agenda at the FCC. You remember during the Biden years, Vice President Harris was put in charge of a $42 billion plan to connect high-speed internet to millions of Americans. Well, after thousands of days, not a single American was connected, not a single shovel's worth of dirt was turned. President Trump came in and he has quickly turned that program around, and now we are seeing internet builds accelerate in this country. Again, prices are coming down, speeds are increasing, competition is intensifying, and we're going to get some really good results for the American people.
Right. Well, we saw what a success she was with respect to the border wall, right?
Yeah.
So we're a little over, but I do want to mention one last thing. You, under your initiation, under the guidance, of course, of our amazing president, have started something called the Pledge America campaign.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in this room would love it, and they should encourage their local members of Congress and senators to push this through. It's not a congressional action, but just to voice support for the Pledge America campaign. Tell us really quickly about that.
Yeah, we're entering the 250th birthday of America. It is a wonderful year. And at the FCC, we're doing our part. We've launched a Pledge America campaign that allows broadcasters, consistent with their public interest obligations, to run patriotic, pro-America programming. You can start the day with the Pledge of America, Pledge of Allegiance. We can run all sorts of programs highlighting the great wins from presidents from George Washington all the way up through President Trump. We've had some great reception. Of course, there's the predictable people on the far left who are upset about that. Apparently they don't like patriotic, pro-America programming, but we're going to keep doing it. Look, it's the honor of our lifetime to work at the FCC, to run the agency. It's an honor to work for President Trump. He's told everyone in Washington, D.C., be bold, be aggressive, and we're taking our lead from him in terms of the energy and the number of actions that we're taking in D.C. We're delivering great results. We're about a year in. There's more to come, but President Trump has set the pace, and we're all following his lead.
And you're doing it, and we
Thanks.
appreciate you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, CPAC.